Hello and welcome to Epiphytic Cacti. Today let's take a look at Weberocereus Tunilla subspecies Tunilla. According to IUCN-redlist.org, this species is classified as least concern in terms of extinction. It has a wide distribution occurring from Honduras in the north southwards through Nicaragua over much of Costa Rica and into Panama. It grows at elevations ranging from sea level to 2,300 meters above sea level. The population is continuing to decline. The species inhabits lowland and montane wet forests and is pollinated by glossophagine bats. This species came into my collection about a year ago now. It came to my collection at the same time as Weberocereus Tunilla subspecies Bialii and Weberocereus trichophorus. You can see a picture of all three of them growing together here. The one on the left being subspecies Tunilla, the one in the middle being subspecies Bialii, and the one on the right being trichophorus. You can see that Weberocereus Tunilla subspecies Bialii seems to grow considerably faster than either subspecies Tunilla or trichophorus. So it does seem like it's a little bit of a slower grower. It was also slower to flower than subspecies Bialii by quite a bit. And I'm not really sure quite yet, but I kind of think that they will both have the same kind of curious flowering pattern, where subspecies Bialii seems to kind of continuously flower. As so far, in the time that I've had it, which is again about a year, it has flowered 3 to 4 times, and that it didn't start flowering until after it reached maturity. It has not really stopped flowering for an extended period of time. It will flush blooms, they will die, and a couple of weeks later, it will start producing more buds again and bloom again. So it seems to kind of have this strange ever blooming pattern. And so what I noticed about subspecies Tunilla is that you could see a lot of swollen areoles, and then one of those ended up turning into a bud, and then it ended up flowering, and now the flower has died, and it still has those swollen areoles, which was very similar to how subspecies Bialii behaved. So I'm thinking it's probably going to have the same kind of flowering habit, but I'm not entirely sure yet. It was one of the harder epiphytic cacti species to collect, and as most of the Weberocereus kind of were, because they're not so cultivated. I don't know if it's just kind of a lack of interest from people, or if they don't know that they exist to collect them. I think the little flowers that they have are absolutely wonderful. I love these weird little flowers. All of them have the same kind of appearance to them, where the bud starts and it doesn't look real. It never looks real. It always just looks like it's some kind of wax because of how impossibly shiny they appear. It's a really, really strange little flower. All of the species have kind of different scents, and Weberocereus Tunilla, subspecies Tunilla, was kind of the same thing. It kind of had an odd melony kind of scent. I don't know if I truly thought that it was off-putting, but most people that I've heard describe any of the Weberocereus flowers that do have a scent describe it as unpleasant. In terms of rooting and care and stuff like that, these are all always just growing in my same standard kind of epiphytic cacti mix. They're all treated in generally the same kind of way. I do move them outside to grow outside during the warm months. I don't move them out until the nighttime temperatures are above 50 degrees, though. There's just no real reason to take any kind of risk like that with plants that are very, very hard to collect. In terms of growing inside, though, they are different than most of the other epiphytic cacti. While I do think I could probably just put them in the basement with a lot of the other epiphytic cacti, or even keep them around the house, I did find that these particular species really, really strongly appreciate having much warmer temperatures. Think in maybe the 80s. So somewhere between 70 degrees and 90 degrees seems to kind of be their sweet spot. And they appreciate a lot more humidity than most of the other epiphytic cacti that I've collected. I would say that the cabinet that I grow them in, because they are growing with Strophocactus wittii, the humidity levels in there are always around 60 to 80%. Usually they're hovering around 70%. They seem to just really enjoy that, and they grow really, really well in comparison to even them being outside, because my temperatures outside aren't really quite that warm consistently or that humid consistently. Rooting them was very easy, just like any other epiphytic cacti. Just kept the substrate moist and put the cuttings in once they were calloused over, and they took root very quickly within a few weeks and started growing very quickly as well. In terms of fertilization, I do fertilize with every single watering. I fertilize with low doses of hydroponic fertilizer these days, with a little bit of calcium and magnesium added in. So the hydroponic fertilizer that I use is the Flora Grow series, and I have a meter, and so it's about like 200 ppm every single watering. I can't really stress enough that most epiphytic cacti are in subtropical to tropical climates. Here is a climate map of a location this species has been found growing near. You can see, looking at this, that there's very little temperature fluctuation, so there isn't a cold season, so it doesn't need a cold spell. You can see that the rainfall, that there is a rainy season, and then there is kind of a drier season. And then you can see in the daylight hours that they are very consistent, again, because it's very close to the equator, so about 12 hours of daylight daily. Keep in mind that these grow right alongside a lot of your really popular houseplants, your aroid, your orchids, your bromeliads. And so you wouldn't take those types of plants and maybe like stuff them away in your cold, dark basement and not water them. So you probably shouldn't do that with your epiphytic cacti, considering they have the same care requirements. So far, the plant itself is more robust in terms of like the branches are thicker and just kind of more robust in general than subspecies Bialii. And they seem to be consistently more three-angled, a lot more strongly three-angled. I know that Bialii can actually sometimes produce like kind of flat to round to three-angled kind of branches, but these seem to be very consistent and very distinctly three-angled. The flower, I just love this flower. It's got a beautiful kind of shimmery pink tone, but it has those like little bits of yellow hues and stuff, especially on the outsides of the petals, that just kind of give it like a, hard to explain really, but it's kind of like a real soft glow that the flower has. And they're small. They're not large flowers by any stretch of the imagination. They're just small, cute little flowers. You can see with my hands in the photo about the size of the flower. They don't have like the sort of back petal parts, or the parts that are part of the floral tube are not quite as, like, they don't really curl back in the same way that subspecies Bialii does, at least not on this first flowering. So they're a little bit more straight, but the flower color is just really something else that, like, I'm not even really a pink fan. And I always say that, but then every time I see a pink flower, I'm like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing ever. So maybe I am like a pink fan in denial. I'm not entirely sure, but it's such a soft, beautiful kind of pink. And just like with all of the other Weberocereus, there is a ton of stamen and a ton of pollen. Unusually, this flower did open earlier in the day, so before dusk, which most of the Weberocereus species are night flowering, so the flowers tend to open more as soon as it starts to get dark. So it was kind of an unusual thing. I don't know that it's going to stay that way, but it allowed me to take some really nice pictures with some really nice light throughout the day. I hope you've enjoyed looking at Weberocereus tunilla, subspecies Tunilla with me. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy cacti growing.